what's the real function of the Mashiach, especially the Mashiach ben Yosef, the Mashiach ben David, and the Mashiach ben Don? And this is what is coming to me, and it's a very big chiddush. The function of the Mashiach ben David is to do what? Is to attempt to allow Klal Yisrael to still be Zocher to Olam Haba. You know, it's, even though there's something that's called Adam Rishon Koydem Achet, and that was originally the way Adam Rishon would get Olam Haba, an Indian of what's called Koydem Achet, so that he would earn Olam Haba. He would earn Olam Haba by not doing a chet, by being Mekayim the mitzvahs and so on. But he failed in that way. So Adam Rishon, who was the original Mashiach, was supposed to earn Olam Haba through the Midas Adin, by not doing a chet. That Mashiach is called Adam Rishon. Because the name Adam implies the way you go to it. Because what it says about the Mashiach ben David is the word Adam, Aleph Daled Mem, that stands for Adam David Mashiach. So the name Adam includes all three madregas. He's in a madrega in Adam. What's that madrega? That means he's the word Adam comes from the word Adama. But what it indicates, what does Adam Rishon as an Adam indicate? What does that indicate? The concept of what? If the name Adam symbolizes the Mashiach ben David, or the creation of Olam Haba, according to Schusim, what does the word Aleph symbolizing Adam symbolize? Din. And what is that? How does that symbolize din?
Because you do it, the cause and effect.
So what's the cause and effect?
You do the mitzvah, you get the Olam Haba. You fail, you get Ibud.
Right. Okay. So the word Aleph for Adam.
Ibud.
No.
Elohim.
The word Aleph represents the name Adam.
Yeah.
And why is he called Adam? Since he's a spiritual being, really.
Right.
Why is he called by the name of Adam? Because it represents the spirituality of the man. How? How does the name Adam indicate not the physicality, but the spirituality of Adam?
I don't know.
Because the word Adama means ground.
So it's like Mavatel. So.
What does that symbolize? That symbolizes that he's a certain type of spiritual being. What type of spiritual being is it? It's somebody who has a component in his personality of Adama, the ground. And what is the ground really? What aspect, what substance is the concept of Adama, the ground?
Dirt.
What's that?
The dirt is the substance.
So what does that symbolize? So what?
It symbolizes potential for growth.
How do you see that?
Put something in the ground, put water on it, and it grows.
Okay. Okay. No. But it's a nice try.
I didn't think it would be.
It's a nice try. Why does the word Adam from Adama indicate? Because what's the main feature of Adam Rishon?
That he came from the ground.
What does the ground do? What is it for?
What is it for?
Why does Adam Rishon have to come from the ground?
Because physicality is the base of physicality. It's the root of all physicality.
And what's the fundamental purpose of physicality?
To allow for tikkun nama d'chisufa, meaning to create the venue of to rectify nama d'chisufa.
So what does it indicate? What does that indicate exists?
Free will.
Free will. And what is the contribution of dirt to free will?
That's a hard one. Contribution of dirt to free will. Because I can plant, I can work the land, and I think therefore that's represents nama d'chisufa. I'm outside of God. I have my own koach. I can create with the ground.
So what is the Adama, or the fact that the Adama is a component of Adam Rishon, mean?
That's the nama d'chisufa.
What from the Nam Ksufa? It symbolizes Nam Ksufa, but what is the symbol of Nam Ksufa in the Adam?
That I'm independent.
And in order to be independent, what do you have to have?
A self.
A self. You have to have self-awareness.
Right.
But what do you specifically have to have?
Power. Kol chivot miyadi.
Oh, and what is that called?
Power. Or
The Yetzer Hara.
the Yetzer Hara, right.
So the source of the Yetzer Hara is the Adama. That's what disguises the neshama. So does the neshama itself have a Yetzer Hara? No, not really. It's the guf that has the Yetzer Hara.
Right.
So when God wanted to give man a Yetzer Hara, which would make man a duality, he has to create another substance that conceals the neshama. And that substance is Gashmius. You see, Gashmius doesn't exist. For what purpose? Why was man made Gashmius?
To conceal the neshama.
And therefore to allow the possibility
of tikkun, or of choice, free will.
Right. That's the essence. So that's why the ego that a person has that symbolizes is his power of free will, that he's free. But in order to be free, you have to have an option to go in the wrong direction. And that's the Yetzer Hara.
Right.
So it's the Gashmius that allows the Yetzer Hara to exist. And it's Gashmius together with Ruchnius. Ruchnius allows the Yetzer Tov, and Gashmius allows the Yetzer Hara. That gives you the duality of what? Of free choice. Now you can masaken Nam Ksufa. Because of what thing? Because of your neshama, or you masaken Nam Ksufa because of your guf? What is the Ika instrument?
The guf is the instrument of attacking. But if you have to attacking something, that means that the Yetzer Hara still is kind of in the neshama.
But it's not really Yetzer Hara. You're right, it's Sheirish.
Sheirish is in the neshama, but it's not...
It's not a manifestation
right.
or power until you have a guf.
Right.
So your Ika name, what makes you different from everything else, there's no free will in all creation. So if I want to tell you that man is a ben free will, is a functionary, he has free will, what would I use to symbolize free will? Adam.
Right.
Because Adam is the only thing that has free will. Why? Because it has a guf.
Right.
So that's why the word Adam symbolizes fundamentally mankind with free will in Olam Hazeh.
Right.
That's why it's called Adam. Okay, if we have that. So the first letter of the name indicates Adam, that he's a chofshi, he's a person with free will, to get rid of the concept of his, to establish the concept of his yichud in a way. Okay. Dalet symbolizes the word David. And what does the word David symbolize?
Let's say the Gvura, Malchus, like killing the Yetzer Hara, removing the Yetzer Hara.
No. So,
I'm taking my shots. You gotta take a shot. You can't score unless you shoot the ball.
Right. You have to have free will.
Right.
David is a madrega of the Tikkun Ulam Sufa. But the Dalet Idvav, when you say Mashiach ben David, you're really referring to the Zulosai, but in the form of madregas, so that if he does sin, he can still be zocher to a madrega of Olam Haba. You understand?
Not fully. I understand conceptually, but not how it connects to David.
Because David is the madregadik Zulosai.
Right, it's a higher level than Adam.
No, Adam is the highest level. It's Adam Arishin. Aleph indicates a Baal Bechira.
Right.
And with the Bechira, what is the goal of Adam Arishin?
Olam Haba.
Olam Haba. And in Olam Haba, he could do one of two ways. Either his Olam Haba will be absolute and one madrega alone.
Or it could be multiple madrigas.
But, so the Dalet indicates, the Zulosa is called, the Tikkun of that is called Mashiach ben David. That's the Mashiach of Baal Madregas. That's if he sins, he can still have lower Madregas. So
but I thought that was Yosef or Dan.
No, that's David. That's why it's called Mashiach ben David.
I thought it would be the opposite, that Rachamim allows for...
Rachamim, but we're only talking about Din. We're talking about the effort of the Mashiach ben Yosef. We're talking about the effort of the Zulosai to acquire Olam Haba. That's Din.
Okay.
And when Din works through Rachamim, he's called David. But it's still Din. So what does Din do? Din creates the Zulosai as a Baal Madrega. And that allows Olam Haba to be Din. And finally the Mem. What is the Mem stand for? Mashiach. And what is that?
Hatzalah.
Hatzalah?
Yeah. Saving even the ones who... The Zulasa who couldn't.
No. The word Mem stands for Mashiach. And what does the word Mashiach really mean?
The anointed one?
Right, the anointed one. It means the successful one. That's Olam Haba without a Madrega. He earned it because he did the mitzvah. There was never a Zohar in the world.
We're talking all Kodem Achet.
Yeah.
So then why does David come into play? Because David is a function of Rachamim.
Yeah. It's chronological. What the name Adam is.
But it's really not, isn't it?
Well, Adam, the Aleph indicates Madregas. That what he called. He's a Baal Bechira.
Right.
Okay. The Dalet indicates that how's he going to earn Olam Haba? He's going to earn it by converting Olam Haba into a series of Madregas. How? By Rachamim.
Right.
So if he does say, God allows the Mashiach, the Zulosai, to Masakin Nam Ksufa, to Rachamim, by creating Mashiach ben Yosef, by creating the concept of Olam Haza, where you can actually create Madregas of Olam Haba. So it indicates the way the Zulosai will finally earn Olam Haba through the union of David, which
Right.
represents, so as a mankind.
Right.
So in Mashiach, when David symbolizes Olam Haba of mankind, the Mem symbolizes Olam Haba with only one man, Adam Rishon.
But it's not applicable anymore.
It's not applicable, but it was the original
Plan.
first Madrega.
So it's not really chronological, because really the mem should have came after the aleph.
Well, you can play it with how you want, but this is not chronological. It's what's called historical.
Right.
Historically, Olam Haba is a result of Mashiach ben David. It's Olam Haba is not the result of Mashiach.
Right.
You know, it's who never did a sin in his life.
Right.
So it tells you the steps, chronologically the steps. The original step, the first step, is Adam, Bal Bechira. How does it work? It works because it becomes successful only in the form of David, for Olam Haba of mankind. But it's supposed to work theoretically through the Mem, where Olam Haba is only for one person, Adam Rishon Koydem Achet.
Right.
So it's telling you the possibilities, and it tells you the possibilities chronologically, how it will happen finally. He won't get to the Mem, but he will get to the Dalet.
Right. Okay.
And how does he get there? Because he becomes a Baal Chivur Chavshus. He has free will. So it indicates the movement towards Olam Haba. You can start in each direction, whichever way you want to go. But historically, it's Adam, Aleph Daled Mem, because that's what happens. The whole Chumash is a story of Mashiach ben David. You know what I mean? It's not the story of Mashiach. Theoretically, it's a story of Mashiach.
Right.
But he sinned, so the whole story now is about Mashiach ben David, the Bala Madregas of Olam Haba for mankind. So we see, fundamentally, how many Madregas of Olam Haba are there? 2. There's the Mem, which indicates Achar Atikun,
Kodem Achet.
Koydem Achet. And then you have another, that's Mitzad Adin. But you see, there's another Madrega of Olam Haba, which occurs Achar Hachet.
Right.
So there are only 2 things.
2 possibilities.
Either one is right, 2 possibilities of Olam Haba. One is
Madregas, one
is Madregas, and one is no Madrega.
Right.
It's only one level. So you understand what I've done. I've pulled out 2 Madregas of Olam Haba from the name of Adam. But the truth is,
there must be 3.
Oh. And what is the third?
And the mem could be Moser.
No. The answer to that is, it's not in the name. You can't even see it in the name. You know why? Because what's the third Madrega of Olam Haba? But it's not in the name. It means that God never had an intention of having a third Madrega. Because either you earn a Madrega with the Madrega of a Mashiach, which is no Madrega, it's only one Madrega, that's it. Or you earn Olam Haba through the Madrega of what? Of sin. After it's Achachet.
Right.
So either you have Koydem Achet or Achachet. There's no other Madrega. Yes, there is. What's the third Madrega of the Zulasoi that God decided to institute?
I don't know.
there's one Madrega that the Gemara keeps on talking about, but it says this Madrega has no chelik in Olam Haba.
Yeah, it said Moser.
Like Moisum. But it's not the Mem is the Moisum. Mem represents Mashiach.
Right.
So the actual Madrega of Einahem chelik Olam Haba is not really in the name at all.
Right.
So what is God going to do with these people? There are a lot of people like that. They, technically speaking, we don't have to talk about it, they did enough sins, or maybe their sins are much larger than their mitzvahs.
Right.
You know, let's say the concept of earning Olam Haba, there's a perfect tzaddik, but achar chet, you know what I mean? So he gets it in terms of madregas. Okay, good. So there's a third madrega where he never gets Olam Haba, and that's not in the name, because that level of rachamim, which allows a person to have Olam Haba, even though he did Averis, but he didn't do enough. There was so few mitzvahs that he did that it cannot overpower the concept of Olam Haba.
Right.
So he doesn't get Olam Haba. How does he do that? It doesn't make sense. Because what's that pasuk? Where God speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu and says, that is not a madrega, because God is saying, I'm going to give him a chelik Olam Haba, no matter what, even if he does nothing. Right? Because if you have no chelik Olam Haba, mitzvah din, you don't work. You don't have any ability to have Olam Haba. So how does God give him Olam Haba? What is it, a freebie? I mean, it's completely connected everything we understand about this. So what does it mean that God said, I'll even save him? Nice try. How do you do that? So I can understand, you do it by making madregas. You don't get it at a higher level. You get it at a lower level. You're not getting it there at a lower level. So you keep on getting it until you reach a madrega where there's nowhere to go. So nice try, but how do you do that? So the real question is, how does God say, even if you make him unaccountable, you can only make him unaccountable to a certain level. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You just can't give a person Olam Haba when there's nothing there. Because that goes against the principle of tikkun. So that's really a very important question. And that's why that's not in the name of Adam. Because it's outside of the principle of what you do is what you get. But how could you be outside of that principle?
You're done.
Oh, how does he do that? Oh, but good.
Yeah.
Done. And that's why the Mashiach, the first madrega of Mem is the concept of Mashiach, period. The second is the concept of David or Yosef. And that's why they're twins.
Right.
In other words, David exists as long as there's Yosef.
Right.
That's why it's for Hayu ala Chodim Yodi. They're twins, and I make them both in this kind of thing, and that's why there's Olam Haba, because there's a Yosef. So that madrega is when the Mashiach ben David is in a wheelchair. He can't walk. He's in a wheelchair, and so on. And who pushes the wheelchair? Yosef.
Mm.
In the first case, when he's Mashiach only, he walks on his own. Nobody's helping him. In the second case, okay, he can't walk. He can only use a wheelchair, but he still has a wheelchair. In the third case,
they both can't walk.
No, well, it's not that. In the third case, he can't walk alone, and there's no one there to help him.
There's no wheelchair.
There's no
nothing. Or a pusher.
Pusher, right. But yet God said, how? Now, we never really spoken about that. But that also says there's a different job that the Mashiach when done, who's supposed to save that person. See if what is the name of the Mashiach when done? You know?
Sharia.
Sharia. What does Sharia mean? That's why his name is Sharia.
Sar Hashem, the Prince of God.
Comes from the name Sar,
Right.
Prince, in Yisrael. Okay. So what is it? So what is he doing? What is he doing?
He's suffering.
Yes, but there's one very big difference, because the Mashiach ben Yosef says, I can save.
Ad Khan. I can't go further.
I don't need you. You don't need me to save the Mem Mashiach. He does it on his own, because he never sins. You need mankind, Bal Madvegas. That's where I come in.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't come in for the third category, where what? We cannot be saved by anyone. And that's why he has no chelik in Olam Haba. If God didn't have to take away his chelik in Olam Haba, he wouldn't. You know what I mean? But he said that he would. He will not allow anyone to have Olam Haba based on the fact that he's doing nothing. And that's why the Mashiach ben Yosef says, you know what I mean? I don't have the power to save him. And what does he mean by that? So that's why we have to first look in, what is the purpose? How does the Mashiach ben Yosef do it? As the Mashiach ben Yosef, how does he do his thing?
I would think through teaching Klal Yisrael.
Not really. Sorry. You're not scoring.
Oh, for 3 tonight.
I'm sorry. You know, this happens once in a while.
Look, sometimes even Michael Jordan had a bad game.
What? You know how he does it? What is the life of Mashiach ben Yosef? It's a life of suffering.
Right.
Why does he have to suffer? You know why he has to suffer? And this is a very deep thing. He has to suffer because by him suffering, when he should suffer, the Mashiach is not a Ba'choit. He doesn't do any sins.
He suffers for everybody else.
Does he suffer for everyone else? Or does when he suffer and he creates the possibility that suffering can wipe out Chatoim? You know, he's not simply suffering for everybody else.
Right.
You know what I mean? And thereby he allows them time to undo the chait. It's not that. It's that when he suffers for Klal Yisrael, he suffers that suffering should be a ticket into Olam Haba. He's creating that suffering should work and should allow Klal Yisrael to be a Bal Madrega. And how is that done? Through his suffering. This is a very deep concept.
You're saying that the suffering is creating the concept of Yisurin are mechaper avonos.
Right.
So conceptually it creates the mechanism. But it's the Mashiach ben Dun who suffers mamish for them.
Yes, but what's the difference between the suffering of Mashiach ben Yosef and the suffering of Mashiach ben Dun?
Right, I'm saying Yosef is creating the mechanism that Yisurin should work to be Mechade.
Yeah.
Dun is doing the actual suffering for them. And they're able to attach through his Yisurin, they're able to get into Olam Haba.
Dun.
Scored something maybe tonight?
Kind of says it.
Right.
You redeemed this. You saved your reputation. That's nice. So Mashiach ben Yosef creates the possibility that suffering could mechaper your voinus. It could be mamarek. It's as a.
But so why does he have to suffer then? Like that suffering, what's it doing? Like it's just creating the concept.
Who Mashiach ben Yosef?
Yeah, it's like it's strange. It doesn't.
Because the truth of the matter is, when a person suffers, should that give him a chelik in Olam Haba?
No, not really.
How does it give him a chelik in Olam Haba?
Through the suffering, he'll come to realize God is everything, and he'll come back. He'll do.
So
tshuva.
it's an antinomian. It's against the sin itself, because when you do a sin, you claim your power.
Right.
And when you suffer, you are vulnerable. And the God says, well, if the Mashiach ben Yosef is vulnerable, which he really doesn't deserve to be, but his acceptance of total vulnerability, because he's suffering, will legitimize that level, that vulnerability as an ongoing feature of your life, can take away what sins do in a certain way. Of course, you also have to have a certain amount of schusim.
Right.
Or else it doesn't even work with Mashiach ben Yosef. He has to have a certain amount of schusim.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But the chatoim mitigate against the schusim. So you have to have a certain amount of schusim to allow the suffering to mamarek, to erase the sin's effect on your madrega. So in other words, and that means that the Mashiach ben Yosef has to be able to suffer a certain amount. You know what I mean? And however you calculate that, the fact that he suffers for no reason at all into a totally vulnerable state allows vulnerability to be a new type of kinyan. You know, it's a state of vulnerability which is opposite the state of power, you know,
Right.
can become a mechanism to have a person earn Olam Haba when he's already earned a certain amount of vulnerability. He's earned a certain amount of mitzvahs.
Why doesn't his suffering help others or achieve that for others?
That's a different story, to suffer for someone else and give something to someone else. That's an extreme version. Right. You see, the essence of the Mashiach ben David, is the fact that through his suffering, he can expiate his sins, get rid of them. But he has to have a certain amount of schusim also. He can't just walk into Olam Haba and having done nothing. That's impossible. He has to have done a certain amount of mitzvahs, you know, what's called the majority of his ma'asim, or good deeds, and that gives him the schus to hold on to attach himself to Olam Haba.
That's David?
David. So therefore what allows him, you see, what Yosef does is transfer the ability for suffering to earn you Olam Haba, as long as you have other schusim. Your life has to have some amount of schusim to earn Olam Haba, even though the sins that you do detract from Olam Haba. But you can remove the detraction from the suffering, vulnerability. So vulnerability can give you the ability of your sins being removed from you, so they don't interfere with the olam haba that you've earned through mitzvahs.
Right. That's David.
That's David and Yosef together. That's why they're
They're
paired.
both. You're saying both of them have that effect.
Then you need both together. Because as soon as you will sin, you push yourself away from olam haba.
Right.
So you've got to push, control that push away, that doing that. Something has to be mitigate your sins. It has to remove the negative effect that hold you back from olam haba. And Yosef does that by his suffering or by vulnerability. But the majority of your maisim have to be schusim.
Right.
Done.
Right.
Done is obviously talk about a man who has no livable skills of schusim. For some reason, this guy, his claim to schusim is almost nil, because by the intensity of his maisim, chatoim, they've wiped out whatever is considered a schus.
It could wipe out his chus, though.
Well, he has no schus.
Right. Yes.
I mean, I don't know how they calculate it. There's nothing to speak of.
Right.
So how does it do it? So the answer is, the mem of Adam Rishon stands for Adam Rishon Koydem Achet. The Daled of the name of Adam Rishon is Adam Rishon Achet.
Which is really David and Yosef.
That's a combination of Yosef and David. That's why there are two of them. That's why God says, "V'hiyu la'achodem b'yodi." They will be as one. Yosef
And David.
is Mamarek, the Chayvus, and David is an Indian of a schusim. You need both of them.
Mm.
But Don, what does he do? All he does is suffer. In other words, all the other Mashichim who are Yosefs don't suffer their whole life.
Right.
Because if you look at their life,
They have some godless to them.
it's always a godless. Like for example, the Ari.
Right.
The Ari is Mashichim Yosef. But when do you see the Ari suffers? His whole life, he was a Kodesh and so on and so forth.
Right.
You know, when you see his suffering,
He died young.
yeah. So therefore, a piece of his life suffers.
Right.
But the rest of his life is good.
Right. The Ramchal.
The old Mashiach ben Yosefs,
Right.
they're fundamentally, they're usually the end of their, toward the end of their life,
Right.
is that's when you see them
Right.
suffering.
Rabbi Kiva was Gadol, and then the end is when he suffered.
Right. But the
The
Mashiach,
Rambam was tremendous, and then
right,
I don't know. When did he suffer? Did the Rambam suffer?
yeah, his whole fortune was wiped out when his brother died.
When his brother died?
Yeah, his brother was a trader in jewels, and he used to go out to different countries by ship, and he once went into a storm, and the ship sunk.
And he lost all his stuff.
He lost his whole fortune.
And that's how he supported the Rambam? Like?
Yeah, he used to support the Rambam.
Wow.
So they say the Rambam got very sick.
Afterwards.
Yeah, he was sick for a number of years because he lost his whole fortune, and now he had to work. He was, learning the whole time. He's a very big tzaddik, and then he finally got over it. He became the physician to the Grand Vizier of Egypt.
Right.
But most of his life was not suffering, was hatzlocha. A part of his life was suffering.
Right.
That was the part that got rid of the sins, which can interfere with your going to the Mabah. But in the case of the Mashiach ben Don,
Oh, he's got it in for him.
right from the day that he's born, all the time, you see, and that's it. And so what you see is amazing. What's his chusam? So he's able to give the olam haba to somebody who has no chus, because he suddenly creates a suffering not simply as a way to get rid of chatoim.
Oh, his suffering creates the chusam. Ooh.
So in other words, he creates olam haba for the people, not with the people. And that is unheard of.
What's the riot of that, though? Like, how do you see that?
Well, you see it from the different type of suffering that he has. You know, in fact, you see, the interesting thing you say is the name Don. I mean, who was the Mashiach ben Don before Shimshon HaGibor?
Chushim, Mashiach.
Yes. And what's Chushim's name?
Mashiach ben Don.
But it's the closest to the highest level of Mashiach, because the word Mashiach is in his name.
Right.
So the most astonishing fact is that he actually creates Olam Haba. It's a new madrega of Olam Haba that never existed before. Up to now, we only see two madregas. The madrega of the Mem, Koydem Achet, the madrega of the Dalad, Acha Achet, with him and Yosef. But the third one, where does he appear? He doesn't. He suffers so that he creates Olam Haba for them. So therefore, he has to suffer in a certain way. He's never matzliach all his life.
Until the end.
Until the end.
When he is matzliach.
Well, the suffering.
Hopefully you get some hatzlacha, you know.
Well, I'm not sure. Right at the end. So that's what you see. So you see a new concept in Olam Haba. When a Baal Bechira can earn Olam Haba, never having done a mitzvah or anything that qualifies him. So therefore that madrig is called Koydem Achet, Acha Achet, and Achar
Masira.
Achar Ibud. He should be dead. He should be annihilated. So he's not annihilated. It's Achar Chibud. There is an Olam Haba that's beyond Chibud. And who's that? That's someone who doesn't own anything in Olam Haba. In other words, Olam Haba is a complete rental or lease.
Right.
He never owns an iota of it. And that's the real madrega of Mashiach ben Don. So that's what God told Moshe. What he said to Moshe, you're worried that I'm going to punish Klal Yisrael because they sinned with the golden calf. No, I'm not going to do that. Because they still have enough schusim for Olam Haba. But if you have a problem to worry about, you should worry. Because there will come a time when there will be no schusim at all. And that's what he was telling Moshe Rabbeinu. You know? For Chanoisi, he was telling Moshe Rabbeinu that the Midas of Rachamim is so great, that the Rebbeinu Shalom's love of Klal Yisrael is so great, they don't have to have any schusim. And simply, that Olam Haba could be the creation of one man for the Rabbim.
Wow. So he creates the chazan.
That means that every day in the life of Mashiach ben Don has to happen, or else there's no Olam Haba. It's not like every day, if you don't have a day of suffering, okay, so some of the chatoyim go away, you know? So it does affect in a certain way how fruitful Olam Haba is, but to have a situation where you have no chosim, it's achar yibud. That's the madrig of done. So you see how I built it up?
Yeah.
This is not coming out of nowhere, but I'm building it up. From the name Adam to the two things, to the highest madrig of all. He's creating, with his suffering every day, another aspect of Olam Haba that the Mashiach ben Yosef cannot do. Because the difference between Yosef and David, the difference between Yosef and Don is that the Mashiach ben Yosef saves you for Olam Haba. It saves your Olam Haba. And the Mashiach ben Don creates your Olam Haba. It's a very powerful Chiddush. Now, do I really know if this is true? Well, it popped in my head. It just came to me suddenly.
Recently?
It started about 2 years ago, but I didn't reach this level.